everybody. My name's Susan. This is my friend Lisbeth.
Hello.
And we are here this morning to greet you, all of you sitting at home, hoping that you're enjoying this right? No,
hopefully not.
This incredibly beautiful weather today. I'm going to talk to you really quick about groups, care, and courses, which is an area that I am passionate about. We're launching our groups the week of September 18th. We have a new mid-sized group for women, a mid-sized group for men. Lisbeth, what's a mid-sized group?
Yeah, so I would say it's bigger than like a small group, okay? Yep. More than 10,
yep.
Right?
Less than 50?
Yeah.
Unless a lot of you come, because if you do, we're going to break out a little bit. But we're doing some mid-sized groups for both men and women, and oftentimes it's a great way to start your group life experience because it's a little bit bigger. There's bound to be someone you're going to connect with. So would love for you to consider that. We also have Alpha, which is like my most favorite course here, and that is going to launch that same week on September 18th. And we have Bible Basics, which is literally the story of God from the very beginning to the end, talking about Jesus and how he needed to come to do all the things that he did because we're pretty messed up.
Yeah,
just in general.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Care, we have Celebrate Recovery, and we have Divorce Recovery coming in January. We have The Landing, we have Grief Share. You guys, there really is something for everyone. We do so much more than just a Sunday.
Yeah,
Your turn.
For sure. Well, and Students kicks off next weekend.
Yay, students!
So stay tuned for service because we'll talk about that in there.
Yeah.
But Craig McGlasson is speaking today. 1 week series called A New Thing. It was It was a great message. So we'll see you guys in just a few minutes.
Yep. Have a great one.
Worship Jesus and celebrate him this morning. Sometimes on this journey, I get lost in my mistakes. What looks to me like weakness is a canvas for your strength. My story isn't over, no, my story's just begun. Failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. Failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Never wanted perfect, you just wanted my heart. And the story isn't over if the story isn't good, 'cause failure's never final when the Father's in the room. Well, failure's never final when the Father's in the room. Ooh, lay your burdens down. chorus, you sing it. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Hey, let's go! Miracles take place, the cynical find pain. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Jericho walls are quaking, strongholds now are shaking. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Lay your burdens down. Here in the Father's house, check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. You're in the Father's house. Say, lay your burdens down. Here in the Father's house, check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. You're in the Father's house. The Lord is my shepherd, and He is everything I need. So I will not worry, I will not fear the enemy. He said that He loves me, He said that He's with me, even though I walk through the valley of shadow and death, and still I know He has good plans. Oh, He has good plans for me. So I will take part in deserts and gardens. Oh, He has good plans. Oh, He has good plans for me. I know my Father, I know my Father has good plans. The Lord is my Savior, so why should I doubt my victory? Why would I question the rod and the staff that comforts me? He quiets the waters, He quiets the storms inside of me. So what could be better than walking with Him when I believe He has good plans? Oh, He has good plans for me. So I will take on in deserts and gardens. Oh, He has good plans. Oh, He has good plans for me. If Give me Jesus. Oh, give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Oh, you can have all this world. Just give me Jesus. He has good plans. He has good plans for me. So I will take part in deserts and gardens. Oh, he has good plans. He has good plans for me. If I know my Father,
hey, I'm going to take us back through Give Me Jesus. Yep. I don't know if you believe that this morning. And some of you do. Go ahead, you can have a seat. I know some of you believe very much God has good plans, and I know some of you've just got stuff in life right now, and I don't know if you believe that so much. And some of you have been through stuff, and there's maybe you're a fight to believe that, but there's also experiences that seem to want to tell you opposite. We were singing that this morning. I just feel like this is the passage God kept putting on my heart. And this is from somebody that fought to believe God's good plans, but had a lot of life that would have tried to tell him otherwise. The Lord is my shepherd, and so I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. It's him that refreshes my soul. He guides me along right paths for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the darkest of valleys, I will fear no evil. Why? Here's why. Because you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. So surely, goodness and mercy and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. God absolutely has good plans for you. No matter what or who tries to tell you otherwise, his plans are good. And one of the most powerful things anyone ever said to me once was that all of the goodness God can ever demonstrate for you, he already did in the person of Jesus Christ. All that he can do for you, he has already done fully in Jesus Christ. I asked Matthias as I came back up, can you do one more time? I just want us to sit in that moment one more time of give me Jesus, because that's what we're here for today. We're not here for the band, we're not here for me, we're not here for the lot, we're here for Jesus. So let's just one more time, make it your prayer this morning. Father, give us Jesus, give us Jesus.
oh, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, oh, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus, give me Jesus, give me Jesus. You can have all this world. Oh, you can have all this world. Yes, you can have all this world. Just give me Jesus.
All right, well, that was all inaudible, so I'm gonna have to take that time out of my message this morning. Good morning. All right, why don't y'all get back up on your feet for 1 minute. And here's what I would love you to do. Just say good morning to the people around you. Take a second and let them know with it being Labor Day weekend, what are your plans tomorrow and what are you gonna be doing? All right, so if you have not yet met Amanda, who's standing here to my left, you're right. Amanda has been a long-time part of the Orion family and community here, and has just recently actually joined the team officially again after having been on staff with us a number of years ago. And I'm assuming that's your husband again.
Yes.
Always the biggest fan in the room.
Always
I love
the
it.
woo in the back.
I love it.
We're both tall, so we sit in the very back so as not to block other people.
That's perfect. That's great.
Next.
And you should always woo and be the loudest wooer. So anyways, Amanda's job here is really a reflection of her heart, which is connection. And so everything groups is Amanda's passion and heart in getting all of you involved, engaged, and connected. So lots of things happening in group life, and I want to kick it over to Amanda, let her tell you a little bit about it, and then I'll tell you about a couple other things.
Yeah, I'm super excited for what God has in store for this season right now. We've got groups that are going to be kicking off at the end of this month, September 18th. There's a lot of different ways for you to get connected, and honestly, I'll be honest with you, there's been a lot of people that I've met in the lobby with some stories. It's been a day, and there's people who are looking for real connection, and not just with the people around them, but with Jesus. So I'm super excited for what we have to offer here. We've got Alpha, Bible Basics, if you're looking to really dig into your faith and ask questions. We've got Celebrate Recovery, which hurts, habits, hang-ups. If there's things that you're working through and you want some people to come alongside you, that group meets every single week on Tuesdays. We're hoping that you can get connected into that. We also have small groups that are launching, so if you're looking for friends, you want to connect with people around here in the Orion campus. I mean, this is a huge room. There's lots of you here. We want to make sure that you can break it down a little bit and actually meet people that you're going to hang out with, people you're going to do life with, people who have the same faith journey as you. Maybe you're a young mom with little kids. We've got a group for that. If you like to hunt or fish or classical cars or fixing cars, we've got a group for that. So if you want to connect in any way, if you have any kind of interest, or if you're just like me and you're like, I want to hang out with people, we've got a group for that. So come and find me. I'm going to be in the lobby. I'm filling out cards for people. I want to get you connected.
Awesome. Also, just to let you know, a couple other things happening right now. Our high school and junior high group are right on the edge of relaunching into the fall with all their full programming. But one of the things that we do before we go back into the regular programming for the fall is we do a gathering and a bash for both the high school group and the junior high group, and that's coming up. So on your screen, you can see kind of some of the dates and the deets, but here it is. For junior high, which is Breakaway, we are going to be meeting on 9/9 from 4 to 6 at Jesse Decker Park. And then the very next day on the 10th, we're going to be meeting with the high school group. So that's Edge in downtown Lake Orion, same time frame. So, and I know you have a history with obviously our high school group. Amanda for years ran Edge here and Breakaway at Orion. So I love you. Can you just like speak to the importance of this?
I'd love to. So the launch nights for student ministries are super impactful. The hope is that those would be big, energy, fun nights where students can come and check out the program and meet all the small group leaders and other adult volunteers that are going to be part of it, as well as meet friends that are in their community who are wanting to walk alongside them in faith journey. It's the same thing as adults. We want to make sure our students get connected, but these are the perfect night for students who have never been to come and check it out and see what we're all about. And there's going to be tons of volunteers there that want to connect with your students, people who are saying, I want to step in and help lead spiritually, students that are coming up in their faith. And if you love students, please come and talk to me, because I'd love to help you be a small group leader for them. But if you have a student, this is a great night to encourage them to come out and meet some new friends. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And lastly, this Wednesday, we have our monthly midweek service here at Orion. We are going to do it a little bit different. If you were here for the last midweek that we did, we started in the room and then we moved outside. We did baptisms. We did kind of like a big potluck. And we heard from a number of people that they thought it would be great to do just a get together outside, use the lawn, potluck, hang out. So we're going to do that. This midweek is actually going to be all outside, very little, almost no programming, and we're just going to hang with one another and enjoy each other for the night. So it is potluck style, so we need you to bring your food again like last time. We'll have a few things on the grill.
The bean salad. Bring the bean salad. If you were here last week, I talked about it before.
You're like
I will
legit
say it
hooked
again.
on this bean salad
Love the
thing.
bean salad. I mean, the desserts were great. Don't get me wrong. And I saw a lady carry a full 2 bags of subs in. They were so good.
Firehouse. Those
yes,
are awesome.
Yes. I'm like,
Yeah.
who is she? And I want to be her friend.
But you
whoever
just had a
made-
plate full of beans.
I really did. I got multiple helpings of the bean salad. If it was you, I need your recipe, and God bless you. And please come.
And please come, or at least just send your bean salad. So.
No, I want to meet the bean salad person. You're my friend.
All right. In October, we're going to be relaunching our midweek services with a little bit of a different look and a feel. And so super excited for that. Can't wait to do that in October. But this midweek, this Wednesday, it's going to give us a little bit of a pause and a break in between last time and going into the fall, and just a time for us to be a community, to be a family together. So I think we nailed it. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So today and next week is all about the future and moving forward. So what I want you to do for a minute here is turn your eyes to the screen. We got Sam Anderson going to tell you a couple of announcements and things going on around Kensington. And then our new senior pastor, Brian Mowry, sharing some of his hearts and his thoughts about next week and moving forward into the days ahead. So check it out.
Hey everybody, welcome to Kensington. I'm Sam Anderson, one of the teaching pastors here, and I'm so glad that you've decided to join us today. All right, man, listen, this one is especially for you. Man Camp 2023. Now, what's Man Camp, you ask? Well, if I had to define it in one word, it's awesome. That's what it is. We're headed back to Spring Hill Camp October 6th through the 8th for an incredible weekend. There's gonna be all kinds of craziness, some great food. Yes, the food is great. There's some time to hang out with people. We got inter-campus competitions. We have games, sports, intellectual things. I mean, all the things that you could want are gonna happen this weekend at Man Camp, and it's a great chance for you to connect with some other guys. Now, life can be like a hamster wheel. Just trying to make it through life with all your responsibilities, your challenges, your concerns for the future. And retreats are a great way to escape the treadmill of life. We can stop, take a deep breath, and have a chance to hear what God wants to say. This year, we're looking at what it means to be crafted by God and crafted for a purpose. We're also excited because this year, one of the founders of Man Camp and former teaching pastor here at Kensington, Clint Dupin, is coming back to lead us in a couple sessions. We also have Andrew Kim from our Troy campus and Adam Karshner from our Clinton Township campus to lead us as well. I'm pumped. Justin Warrens is pumped. Sergio, are you pumped?
Yes.
Sergio's pumped. Timmy's pumped running the camera. We're all pumped about this thing. Now you're pumped. Go to kensingtonchurch.org/mancamp to sign up or for more information. Now, next weekend is a huge weekend in the history of Kensington. Brian Mowry, our new senior pastor, will be streamed to all of our campuses for a super important message about what Kensington will be focusing on in the next year. Here's Brian to give you a little more.
Hey friends, this is Brian Mowry, and I'm the new senior pastor here at Kensington Church. And I want to invite you out for Sunday, September 10th to any of our campuses for worship that morning, where we're going to launch into a monumental moment in the life of the church that we're calling Above All. Maybe you attend church every single week. Fantastic. Come on the 10th. Maybe you come whenever you can. I want to ask that you'd make it a priority to come on September 10th. Maybe it's been a while since you've been to Kensington. Maybe you've been waiting to see, where's this church going? Well, this is a great moment for you to step back in. Or maybe you're brand new. Perfect. This is a perfect time for you to step into the life of the church. I'm so excited for this next season. I know God has great things in store for us. See you September 10th.
Now, I don't know about you, but I am so excited about what God is going to do in this next season here at Kensington. And I'm excited to hear Brian's heart of what that's gonna look like. Now, if you haven't met Brian or seen Brian yet, please visit kensingtonchurch.org/meetbrian, where you can watch a couple videos, meet his family, and see the schedule when he will be live at your campus in the coming weeks. So there you have it. Man Camp and a huge service on September 10th to hear from Brian Mowry. Mark them on your calendars, and thanks for being here.
So 33 years ago is when this place started, with 3 founders and a group of 17 people that stood on a stage and believed in a future that they couldn't have ever envisioned. And 33 years into this is a huge moment for us to welcome and officially introduce next week, kind of in an inaugural moment, a new senior leader that's going to be taking the reins to say, hey, here's where we're heading to the future. This is a big moment, and it's a do not miss moment. So hopefully you're going to be here and you're planning on it already. If you're not, get here. We've got people that are going to come knock on your door and drag you here. It's not true, but we would love to have you here. Brian will be next week at our Clinton Township location streaming out, so he will not be here live, but it is going to still be a do not miss. And I think just being in the room together, obviously you can watch it online, but being in the room together I think just creates a different moment. On the 15th of October, as Brian kind of makes his rounds around the campuses, that's when he's going to be here live, jumping into the series that will launch next week. And we'll also have afterwards kind of a reception opportunity to meet him in the lobby and his family, and if you haven't had a chance to do that yet, so that is the 15th. But all of this, starting next week, is just such a monumentous moment for us. And as a church, as we have kind of been really moving into this for the last number of years. And some of you have been a part of that journey with us. Maybe some of you, you're new to it. Maybe you just kind of stumbled in here in the last couple of months and you're like, wait, what? Senior who, huh? So you have stepped in at a pretty exciting time for us as a community. So next week is definitely a big moment for us. Really, without trying to oversell it, it's a historic moment for us as a church. My job this week is to talk about that. And what does it mean for us as we kind of prepare ourselves really to go into next week, but more than even next week, to go into what it is that God has ahead of us as we move into the future. So part of what I want to do for a couple minutes is really talk about change and talk about the moments and the seasons of transformation that God leads his people through. He always has, he does, and he always will. This is not new. This is what God does in his church. He is an active God. He is a moving God. And so God has a habit and a history all throughout the church of his people of taking them through seasons just like the one that we are standing on the cusp of right now. So part of what I want to do for a few minutes before Brian speaks to all of us next week is really just kind of lean into what do we do in a moment like this, and how do we prepare our own hearts for what it is that I think God has in store for us as a church as we move into the future. In doing that, part of what I did is I asked one of our 3 founders, Steve Andrews, I asked him this last week if he'd share just a couple of memories with me of early on Kensington, because I have a history that's kind of unique with Kensington, where I have been for 20 plus years in the Detroit metro area doing ministry. And the first church I started at, I remember being a youth pastor there, working with high school students in junior high, and Kensington was like, it was the name. I mean, we were watching you guys. We were taking cues from you. It was, if there's one word that described you, it would have been inspirational. I mean, we were watching Kensington, trying to figure out what to do, what you did, we did. It was a hugely inspirational movement watching what God was doing here. And we, at the church I was at, along with so many others in the area, were kind of taking our cues from what we saw happening here. And then I feel like God brought me in a ring closer when I launched a church. And Kensington, we being a church planting church, found out about that, came alongside me, did all the assessment work with me, and then said, hey, yeah, we're gonna launch you. Matter of fact, the guy who said that is sitting in this room right now, who I had the privilege to get to know, he and his wife, Nick and Amy Boring, over the years. And Nick just made an investment in what we were doing. So Kensington did, in such a way that I would say, if there's a word in that season of my life for Kensington, it would have been life-giving. To me, to our church, and to so many people that met Jesus as a result of that church. And then even more recently, being invited to the table and being a part of it, I would say, of all the things I could probably say, Kensington is just, it's been humbling to be here and actually be a part of the community. So I asked Steve as well, like, hey, what's some of your memories, and what would you say? And if you know Anders, I asked him, just give me a few thoughts, and he gave me a text that was about this long, and I couldn't read half of it because I think he voice texted most of it, and I'm like, I don't know how to make, so I'm pretty sure I translated it correctly, but he just had a couple of bullet point memories as I said, hey, what are some of the memories that pop the quickest to your memory as you think about Kensington's history? And he went all the way back. He said, I remember February 1990, I was asked to present a core team to Faith Christian Church and to the congregation on Sunday morning because we were going to launch a church. As a part of that process, I went around and knocked on 2,000 doors inviting them to come. He says, not one person showed up. He says, although one lady did come about 25 years later. He said, when we got to the day, 48 hours before we were to present the core team, it looked like there would only be 8 of us to stand on the stage together after 2 years of recruiting. Dave Wilson, who is another one of our founders, was out of town that weekend, and so I was nerve-wracked. We ended up actually with 17 that stood on that stage. It was a little bit embarrassing, but it was a lot better than 8. June 1990, we were finally able to reserve East Hills Middle High School in Bloomfield after being turned down by 8 or 9 other facilities. June 1990, Wally and the elders at the church prayed over now 40 of us because our core team had doubled. It doubled because Mark and Callie, another founding family, committed to come, and they brought a ton of people with them. September 30, 1990, Dave Wilson peeked out the back of the green room and into the parking lot. We didn't think anybody would show up, and he couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the cars lined up and looked at me and said, they actually came. October 1, the next day, we knew we'd be out of money by Christmas. Mark and Callie knew that they might need to move into our basement. But God willing, people started to give, people kept coming, and we kept growing. That was 17 people that stood on a stage very much like this 33 years ago and believed in a vision that God had given them, but had no idea that this is what would come of it. I think that we're standing at a very unique time in history ourselves right now, where there might be a few more than 17 of us. But we are standing on the precipice of another moment of change where I think God will lead us into a future that if we will trust him and if we will live for it and if we will fight for it, I'm telling you, we couldn't also imagine what God has in store for us. However, we have 33 years of history that the 17 before us did not, which makes it different. And that's what I want to talk about for a couple of minutes. So let me pray. Father, I just want to acknowledge this morning that we very much need you. Always, not just now, not just in this moment, not just as a result of the season as we're going into, but we need you every moment. That's why I think for me this morning, that song struck such a deep chord, Give Me Jesus. I feel sometimes just more keenly aware of my need for him. It's not that I have need greater sometimes and less others. I just think sometimes I'm too foolish to fully realize just how much I deeply need him. And this is one of those times this week where I am keenly aware of my deep need for Jesus. And so I pray this morning that that's what we'd get. We'd get more of Jesus, his heart, his vision, his passion, his affection, his instruction. And that God, as we open up your scriptures, that you would speak through them, that we would have minds to understand you, hearts to receive you, that these words would make sense to us in a way that no person on the stage, particularly myself, could ever communicate in and of themselves. So Holy Spirit, do your good work, I pray. Own this room, own us as a people, meet each of us wherever we're at, whether far from you, close to you, not sure there even is a you. Do your work to grab hold of our hearts and our minds. And I pray, prop our hearts up with anticipation and excitement and eagerness for all that you have ahead of us, even though it may be unclear at this moment. What is clear is that you are God, that you are leading. You always have, you are, and you always will your church. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, we're gonna take up our offering for a minute before we go further. One of the things that is just integral to us as a community, as a church, this is how we get done a lot of what we do. There is no reaching the people in many of the regards that we do without your generosity. I had the privilege recently to meet a family that just started coming to Orion right after the Oxford shooting. And they decided it's probably time to go check out a church, started coming, met the daughter just recently who is a high school student, and have just been so encouraged by her journey as she's gotten engaged, gone through Alpha, Bible basics, as they as a family are really taking steps, moving forward and understanding who Jesus is, what he has for them, this whole thing called the church and the community of faith. And I cannot underscore enough how significant and important these moments are, because they're not about money, they're all about mission. And this isn't the only way we get our mission done, but it is an important part of it, and lives really are being impacted because of the generosity of this place. So I will never refuse an opportunity myself to just say thank you, as well as to invite you into it and to be a part of this with us. If you ever feel like this is just about money and this isn't really about mission, then give your money somewhere else. I'll give you a list of 20 churches in the area that are worth it, that you can do it. But as long as this place is about mission, then I'm just asking you to bleed alongside my family and I and all the rest of us as staff that are doing this and believe in what we're doing, and so many others like you. So thank you. All right, you guys ready? 3 of you, good, let's do it. All right, Isaiah. I want to go to the Old Testament prophet of Isaiah, and then from there we're going to bounce to a book called Exodus. But Isaiah, chapter 43, this is what the prophet once spoke as instructed by God to the nation of Israel, who was living under the oppression of the Babylonian Empire. This is what the Lord says: your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. For your sake, I will send to Babylon and bring down as fugitives all the Babylonians in the ships in which they took pride. I am the Lord, your Holy One, Israel's Creator, your King. This is what the Lord says: he who made a way through the sea, a path through the mighty waters, who drew out the chariots and the horses, the army and reinforcements together, and they lay there, never to rise again, extinguished, snuffed out like a wick. You know who he's talking about there? Anybody? Egypt. Remember the whole let my people go, Moses and the Pharaoh, and God led the nation out of captivity from the empire of Egypt. There was the Red Sea parted. Who pursued them behind? Pharaoh, his whole army. Red Sea collapsed on top of them. That's why it says they lay there never to rise again. What God is referencing is what the people know well about, which is a significant time in their history when they were under another oppressive rule, another oppressive regime. They cried out to God. God came, God answered, God rescued them. But this was such a significant experience. The miracles, the plagues, the parting of the sea, the changing of Pharaoh's heart. And then they pursued, and God still brought the waters down on them. As God led them and led his people, he did it in a miraculous way. Literally at night, as they're journeying through a desert for years, God leads them. This giant pillar of fire appears. Can you imagine? Like, I know many of us were like, God, if I could just have a sign. Could you imagine fire just poof? Okay, that's a pretty good sign. Like during the day, it's a pillar of cloud. Like there was no mystery for the people of God at this point. Where's God? Oh, there he is. Okay, let's follow that. And so this is a significant time. This would not have been unfamiliar as God references this. Like this was a part of their tradition, a part of their history. It would have been a part of their songs that they sang to remember and acknowledge this moment. So God brings it back up. He's like, hey, this isn't your first rodeo. Remember when you were stuck before and under an oppressive rule and I showed up and here's what I did and the armies and they'll never rise again. So he brings them back mentally. Probably didn't have to do too much work because this would have been top of memory for the Israelites. But then watch what he says. Immediately after, verse 18, forget the former things. He's like, hey, remember all that? And the armies, and they pursued, and the waters came down, they'll never rise again. Forget it. Forget the former things. Don't dwell on the past. Because see, I am doing a new thing. For now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Whenever a society decides to wander away from the heart of God, many things will begin to deteriorate in that society, one of which is how you treat one another. And this has happened all the way back into ancient history, and it happens today in modern times. This is what Israel is experiencing under the Babylonian Empire, an empire that is nowhere near the heart of God, and as such, they see what they want and they take what they want. Whether it's possessions or people, they take what they want. And this is what they've done to Israel. They have decimated a once mighty nation. They've literally turned it into a remnant. And so you have a nation that is now scattered all around the region, some of which even scattered within the Babylonian Empire, some of which even as slaves. And so this is Israel's experience at the moment. The only fortunate thing is this is not the first time they've been here. So they do have a history that they can draw back on and say, wait, God has been faithful. We've been here before. He can rescue us again. But at the top of the hat is going to be the memory of when he did it in Egypt. One of the problems when God comes through in such a miraculous, overt way is that you want to go back there and experience that again. I think that's part of the reason why God is saying to them, forget the former things. I don't think that he's saying, hey, here's what I want you to do. Just wipe the memory slate clean of everything that ever happened in the past. Like, that's not what he's saying. What he's saying essentially is, don't try to recreate the past, and don't try to recreate me from the past. Don't try to make me do what I once did and how I once did it and to the end that I once did it. Why? Because I'm doing a new thing now. Something new is happening in this day and age, and that's why he says, don't you perceive it? Like, pay attention. This isn't gonna be the same thing in the same way that it was in the days before. So what he's saying to them is not just go blank and like forget all of the past. He's saying, don't try to recreate the past, because I'm gonna do something new. And that's when he then says to them, I am gonna make a way in the desert. Now, here's what I've come to learn about whenever God says to a person, to a people, historically, presently, that I'm gonna do something new. When he says, I'm gonna make, is usually followed somewhere at some point by him also saying, I'm gonna take. And the reason is because when God attempts to put something new into our hands, he almost always has to take something old out of them. And so here's what I wanna do. God said, don't remember the former things, don't make me recreate what I did, but I do want to go back to the book of Exodus, not to recreate the way that God led them, and that God freed them, and that God rescued them, to think that that's exactly what he's going to do for us, but because there are significant things that do happen inside of us when transition of season takes place. Things that I think we need to be aware of that could be as much at play for us as it was for the Israelites, that if we're not careful, we will miss what God is presently doing because we're so focused on what he previously did. So let's go back to the book of Exodus and see what he did. Because for me, as you're going there, I'll just tell you this, I don't know how much change your life has had in the last couple of years, but for me, I would say in the last 5 years, I think my wife can attest to this. We've probably experienced more change in the last 5 years than the last 25 combined. From switching churches to come here, moving roles within Kensington, close family friends of 20 plus years that just moved away to Colorado, my son getting married and moving out of the house, gaining a daughter-in-law, our daughters, our twin daughters, starting to drive and getting a job at Dairy Queen, which is making me fatter by the day, and just so much change that's taken place. Nicole and I literally had a conversation the other night where it dawned on us, oh my gosh, we are seriously 2 years away from being empty nesters. What the heck is going on? So we're just under massive change. And even me, I feel like I'm at the age where all kinds of weird things are changing. Just the way I think, the way it's just the other day, we were up north last weekend, as a matter of fact, for a wedding. I don't know if you think of Kaylee, she sings on stage all the time. She got married to Dean, who's usually running around the camera. There you are, Kaylee and Dean. So yeah, congrats, they got married last week. But we were up north for their wedding, and I was coming home, I'm on I-75, I'm driving, and this dude flies past me, and I literally said, without even thinking about it, out of my mouth, out loud, whoa, buddy, where's the fire? And then I was like, when did I get this old? What did I just say, and why did I just say that? I was embarrassed of myself. So I'm just saying, I feel like I have undergone so much change in my own life in the last few years. This text has been critical for me to understand what God does in seasons that transfer to new seasons and how to respond. So Israel has already been freed. They're a couple of weeks into the journey. The Egyptian empire is where God just reminded them in Isaiah, laid waste underneath the Red Sea. Verse 1 of chapter 16, this is what happens. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim, and they came to the desert of Sin, which is in between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had come out of Egypt. So that's a couple weeks. Okay, keep that in mind. This is important. They're only a couple weeks into the journey. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. And the Israelites said to them, if only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. We sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out here into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death. I always love Israel. They're a little dramatic. They're like, you brought us here to die. But what they're doing is they're referencing back to what has previously happened. We had an abundance of food. It's like, yeah, but you were also slaves. But we had stew. But they beat you and whipped you. Like, but it was a bad scenario. Like, but we had pots of meat. Like, they're just camping on them. I get it, it's food. We all need food's important. But they're like super stuck on the meat. It's like this last week, my wife made dinner for us one night, and it was stew. And I know, I'm just not a stew guy personally. I don't like meals that are cooked in pots, like crock pots and stew pots. Like, that's just not me. I'm just not a stew guy. So afterwards, she's like, and she knows this, and she's like, what'd you think of the stew? I'm like, quandary. Like, don't you hate when you're put in that position? I'm like, now you're gonna force me to lie. I have to lie now. I'm like, I liked your stew. So I told the truth. I'm like, I don't like your stew. I mean, I'll eat your stew, but I'm not a big stew fan. Apparently Israel, stew fans. They really like stew. So there you go, babe. You married the wrong guy. So Israel's like, we want to go back to the stew. And it's amazing to me how quickly human nature will begin to complain about what you currently have that you previously prayed about having. Something that you wanted, you get, and then shortly after you start to complain. Like, every parent in the room should say amen, right? But all of us should. You don't escape it. I don't escape it. We get the new iPhone, and then we want the newest iPhone. Get the new computer, we want the newest computer. We get a nice house, we want a nicer. I mean, there's just the human nature constantly gets what we want and then quickly wants something else and wants something more. This is what the Israelites are doing to God. This is what we do to God as well. Their request to him is, if you'll just save us, please come. We're under the oppression, would you? And okay. And then God swoops in and God saves them and gets them out. He answers the very thing that they ask for, delivers exactly what they want, gets them out of oppression, begins them on a journey to the promised land. And what do? Well, we didn't know you weren't packing snacks. Take us back. It's like, they want to go back home. But there's no going back. Because what God has done in getting them out of Egypt is not merely to free them from the oppression of the Egyptian empire, it's to lead them to an entirely new experience. A new experience of faith, a new experience of worship, a new experience of trust, a new experience of community, a new experience of home. And I think when God leads us into new seasons, whether as a church like we're going through or whether in our individual lives, I think when God leads us through a change of seasons, it's for the same thing. It's to lead us into new experience of himself, of his body, of his people, of his passion, of his purpose, of his call on our lives. Here's the problem though. It's really, really difficult to take hold of new experiences while you're holding on to old expectations. And I think we do that sometimes in our personal lives. It's like, I want a new experience in my marriage. But you're still acting the same way you've always acted. Nothing's changed. It's old expectations, wanting new experiences. We do that in our jobs. We do that with ourselves. It's like, I want the new experience of a thinner waistline, but I keep eating that stupid Dairy Queen that they bring home. Old expectations don't create new experiences. Even with my son, I'll tell you recently, I didn't know you were gonna be here today. You go to a different church these days. You surprised me. I'm glad you're here though. Hi. I've had a super difficult time with him moving out. Bella is amazing. We're so thrilled. But he in my head is still my 5-year-old little bean that I took mountain biking and I taught how to hunt, and I miss him. And then every now and then when it starts to become normal, that dumb thing called Facebook throws up a picture of him at 5 years old, and I'm like, ugh! And I just start weeping again, and I'm like, I want my little buddy back. And there are days where I want to go back to what was the old, and I'm like, man, if we could have just had a few more years of him being around. And then recently, here's what happened. So I was in Colorado, broke my hand. He ends up finding out about it and comes over and cuts the lawn. Also happened to, which he would never do without being asked when he lived there, by the way, so thank you. Then proceeds to borrow my truck a couple times while he was there. So I get home from being out of town, and in my truck is a handwritten letter from him, where for several pages, he just recited to me multiple memories of he and I growing up. And at one point, he even says to me in his letter, remember, I didn't know you were gonna be here today, so sorry. He said, I don't know how you thought you did as a dad, but I want to tell you what I think. And proceeded to bless me with words that no person has ever blessed me with. Amen. That's a new season. And I miss the old. But if I only ever clung to the expectations of the old season, I wouldn't have the joy of beginning to step into this new season with my son as a man and what God is changing between us. If we're not careful, what we can do as a church is cling so much to the old expectations that we don't know how to take hold of the new experiences. God has us as a 33-year-old church on the precipice of a new season, where I think he intends to put new things in our hand, where I think as Brian steps fully into his position and continues to lead into the days ahead, he is going to help us figure out, as has been figured out through previous leadership in years past, what the new years will be. And if we're not careful, what we could do is want so much the old expectation, but that's not what we do, that's not how we've done it, but what we've always done, and the way we always sang it, and the way we always lit it, and the way we always felt it. We will hold so much to the old expectations that we will miss the new experiences that God has. And so God reminds his people, listen, I'm always with you. I didn't bring you here into the desert to die. Go back to the text, verse 4, he says, then the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are going to go out each day and gather enough for that day. And in this way, I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the 6th day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and then to be twice as much as they gather on the other days. Verse 13, if you skipped over, it says this, that evening, quail came down and covered the camp. In the morning, there was a layer of dew on the campground. And when the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. And when the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, what is it? For they did not know what it was. This is manna. If you've ever heard the concept of manna in the Bible, obviously many of you have, the Hebrew word for manna literally just means, in its purest form, what is it? I mean, the people looked at the stuff on the ground, and that's what happened. They just went, I have no idea what is that? Manna is what they were saying, and so it became manna. For 40 long years, this is how God sustained his people. God provided in this unbelievable, supernatural way. For 40 years, he rained this manna down and made sure that they had stuff to eat. Also providing the quail to make sure that they had enough protein in it as well. We don't get tons of descriptions throughout the Bible about manna. We get a few things here and there, but I will tell you this. This is what we do know with absolute certainty. There was a heck of a lot of it. 40 years, and all of the people of an entire nation that continued to reproduce and have babies and die off and have this community continued to grow and swell, and for 40 long years, God fed them in this way. That means a lot of manna. So what is it was, there was a lot of it, that's for sure. One author I read even said that the estimate over time and the amount of people puts it somewhere around a daily acquirement of about 3 train boxcars full of manna. That's a heck of a lot of it, every day for 40 years. Here's why I think that's so important. Because a couple things happen when we experience something in large mass and for a long amount of time. Number one, we can either become frustrated with it. This is kind of the familiarity breeds contempt idea. Or number two, and I think this is more likely, we become accustomed to it. When we experience something in a large amount over a long amount of time, we become accustomed to it. Where it's like, well, I can't imagine life not being this way and with this stuff and in this manner. You just become accustomed. Why? Because we're creatures of habit. We like what we like and we don't like to change. Like how many of you, whether it's Starbucks or wherever else you go, how many of you get the same damn coffee every single time? Or maybe you've got like 2. You like bounce between the 2 if you're getting really risky one day. Or you go to your favorite restaurant and you get the same thing. Like we tend to be creatures of habit. I go to Starbucks and like all the time, I'm like, I should try something new. And every time I get the same thing. My wife even brought me in one today. It's a venti skinny cinnamon dolce with half the syrup pumps and no whip. That's what I get. I actually feel really embarrassed even saying it out loud for the first time ever. I don't know why. I'm gonna go back to black coffee, I think. But every time I go, that's exactly what I get. I love it and I just can't change it. Why? Because we're creatures of habit. That's what we do. Once we get stuck on something. Now, what if I experienced that for 40 years and that's all I ate, and then someday someone came along and they're like, you should try the caramel frappe chino thinger. I'm like, no. Like we get stuck. Well, for 40 years, this is what God has done to supply for his people. I find it interesting that at 40 years old, we're 33 years old, we're pretty close in time frame. They're only a couple years older as a nation than we presently are as a church. And in 40 years, God has fed them, he has led them, he has fought for them. He has expanded their territory. He has expanded their influence. God has done similar things over our 33-year history. He has led us. He has fed us. He has fought for us. He has expanded our influence. And in 40 years, or 33 in our context, we've gotten used to a lot of manna. We've gotten used to a lot of things being a certain way, certain expectations that we have. But our God is a God of constant new seasons. And whenever we begin to rely on something more than we rely on him, guess what he does with the manna? He'll take it away. Watch what he does here. Go back to the text in Exodus. I'm sorry, nope. We're going to skip to the future, taking you to Joshua. Chapter 5, verse 10 says this. So this is 40 years into the future now. On the evening of the 14th day of the month, while camped at Gilgal in the plains of Jericho, the Israelites celebrated the Passover. The day after the Passover, that very day, they ate some of the produce of the land, the unleavened bread and the roasted grain. So they're right at the edge of Canaan. Canaan, the promised land that God once described as flowing with milk and honey. This is a fertile soil. This isn't desert. This isn't sand anymore. So they're eating food out of that land. Now watch what this happens. Verse 12, the manna stopped the day after. The day after they ate the food from the land, there was no longer any manna for the Israelites. But that year, they ate produce from Canaan. So for 40 years, God provides in one manner. On the desert floor, here's the dew that turns into manna, eat that. 40 years into the future, they get to the edge of this land that God is promising them. And on that day, the manna's done. But what did it say? Where did they eat that year? In Canaan. Canaan was the promise this entire time. Canaan was the anticipation this whole journey. Canaan was the land that God had told them, I'm ultimately taking you into. Canaan was not a desert. Canaan was not sand. Canaan was a place God said, I will make you a people of your own, where I will be your God and you will be mine. Canaan was a culmination of what all of this had been moving towards. I think there's a couple of things that God tends to do in seasons of change that we need to be super aware of. Because I think whether it's a season of change where he's leading us through a desert into Canaan for the Israelites, or a season of change like he is leading us through right now, I think if we're not attentive to what that means for us, we will do more to cling to what was than what is and what is yet to be. One of the things I think we need to be attentive to is this: new seasons bring new growth. New seasons bring new growth. If you think about it this way, there's an entire generation that doesn't know anything but eating manna off of the desert floor, which means that they have not yet acquired the skills to do what's necessary to survive in Canaan. Nobody in this generation that's grown up behind their moms and dads, because we're told that a whole generation actually passed away and died in the desert, which means those were the people that remember the stew. But there's people that have now grown up as their sons and daughters that never knew the stew of Egypt. All they've ever known is manna in the desert. So what they don't know is how to grow their own crops. They don't know how to grow asparagus. They don't know how to harvest and reap and sow. They don't know how to pull wheat from the ground. All the skills that are necessary for them to now live in Canaan. This is what they have to learn how to develop. And here's part of what I think God will do in a season of change, and I really do believe this is part of what's at work for us right now, is that oftentimes a season of change will lead us to deeper levels of maturity by requiring more from us. Because as God leads them into Canaan, it's no longer just consume what I give, consume what I give, consume what I give. What he's going to tell them now is it's time to start producing. It's time to start contributing. It's time to get your hands dirty and in the soil and start to plant seed and grow crops and harvest and reap and sow. It's time to actually learn to even feed yourselves. I will always be your God. I will always be your supply, but I'm going to ask you to put more skin in the game than I've asked of you yet. This place did not grow because 17 men and women stood on the stage like this 33 years ago and hoped somebody else would do all the work. This place became what it is because those 17 men and women that became 40 that then launched Kensington, they believed that God gave them a job. And it wasn't just to sit back and let somebody else do all the work. They believed that they had a mission. They believed they had a mantle on their shoulders and that God was himself actually pulling them into a movement to reach men and women with the message and the hope of Jesus. And they bled for that. One of the dangers that can happen with any church, let alone one that swells to the size of Kensington, is that we can forget this is not a machine. Because sometimes we go, when it's so big, I don't need me. I got a bunch of other people doing it, a bunch of other things that are happening. I'm just here on a Sunday morning. When it gets this big and there's so many moving parts and so many moving pieces, it can become easy to believe that our role is to come, sit, attend, consume, take it in, and we start to treat this thing as if it's an organization. Do you know the church is never intended to be an organization? It's an organism. The way that God describes his church is as a body. Now, a body and an organism has organizational reality to it, but we are first and foremost, primarily, we are an organism, which is why the Apostle Paul, when he once described us to the Corinthians, he said, you know what you are? You're a body. You're a body with hands and feet and eyes and ears, which is why he went on so far as to say, how foolish would it be if the ear said to the foot, don't need you, or the hand said to the eye, don't require you. Like Paul was trying to make a point that for all of us, you are a part of the body. If you are walking with Jesus, you are a vital part of the body and we cannot do it without you. So here's what I know, as we move into the future, whatever God has in store, we need you to get it done. Because you're Kensington. You're the body of Christ. There's not some magic machine behind the scenes getting it done. You are the 17 men and women now that God's put the mantle on, forever the future is. So whether that means, like Amanda said, you get into a group because you're just sitting in a seat and you're disconnected, then get in a group. If it means that it's time to start serving, then start serving. If it means that there's something we're not even doing and you have a swelling passion for, and you're like, if they just did this, why are you here? That's why you're here. Like, bring it to the surface for us. Start it. Help us create the new initiative. This is not a season to sit and consume. I really believe if we want to be a part of a movement, not just a part of a church service, then part of what God's doing in the change of season is saying it's time to be more producers than consumers. And for those of us, I would just challenge you. If your experience of Kensington is more consuming than it is producing, that's not the body of Christ. And I'm telling you what, we're weaker because of it. We will not experience what God has for us in the future without you. Words that the New Testament describes a church with are fight, run, work, resist, press. Words that we tend to use are sit, watch, entertain, attend. I think part of what God does in the change of season is he grows us by requiring more from us. Let me give you one more. Number 2, new seasons break complacency. It's really easy in any kind of church, the longer you grow and the more your history expands, to forget what you're about. Because you start adding all the stuff. You start adding the things and the groups and the endeavors and the initiative, all of which is important, all of which matters. The problem is when you start spinning so many different plates, what you can do is forget what it is that you actually are ultimately at the core of who we are as a church, what we're ultimately about. And then we become complacent because we're just kind of going through the motions and we forget the things that matter most. And I really think that one of the things that God will do in a season of change like what we're going through, in a season of newness like he's bringing us into, where he says, don't you perceive this? Don't you see I'm doing something new? Is try to break any complacency in us that forgets we have one mission. And it is not to go to church. It is to be the church. It is to, with the same passion that 17 men and women stood on a stage 33 years ago with, the same passion to believe we are here that others may know that there is a living God. His name is Jesus. He's wildly passionate about all of us, and he has made a way for us to know him. Like, if that doesn't burn something within us, I would just say we have gotten complacent then. And I think part of what God may do then is look at us and go, all right, what manna has taken the place of my mission? And I'm going to remove it so that I can break the complacency and give back to you a sense of burning passion that what we exist for is the gospel of Jesus Christ to be made known among all people. That's what we're here to do. Above and beyond all else, with all of the endeavors, with all the things that we do, at the core of every bit of it has to be this, that men and women may know that there is a God whose name is Jesus who is wild about them. That's what we have to burn for above all else. And I think when God leads us into a season of change, that's why he leads us into it, is to break any complacency that would have us forgetting that. And then lastly, I would just say this, new seasons bring new territory. It would have been really easy for the Israelites to just, because it was familiar and comfortable, to go, we're just gonna stay in the desert. We know desert. We know manna. We know the routine here. We know how to live in the desert. We know how to survive here. As a church, we can do that. With a 33-year history, it's very easy to go, we know how to do what we've done. And we know how to do it the way we've done it. And frankly, we don't want to change it. We like the way we do it. But the reality is, had the Israelites stayed in the desert, they would have never gone into the promised land. They would have died in the desert. What God did by taking away the manna was opened up the doorway for Canaan. Was he presented the opportunity for them to finally move into the fullness of the promise that he had for them. I really think that part of God moving us through the season that he is right now is to ultimately expand our territory of impact and influence. And I don't know how that's gonna look. I don't know what that's gonna look like. I'm excited to hear that. I'm excited to feel. I'm excited to be a part of developing that. But I do believe this, whatever it is, God is going to lead us into a season of expanding our impact. If you think 33 years of our history has been pretty incredible, which it has been, then may we have as much eagerness and anticipation of how incredible the next 33 could be. So let me give you 3 prayers, put them all up on screen right now, as a result of these 3 realities that I just want to challenge us all to be praying and asking God to do. The first is just simply this, is to ask God, give us a willingness to grow. On your screen, make me ready to grow. Like if this is part of a new season change, is our growth and maturity, then let's start asking, God, make me ready to grow. Prayer number 2 would simply be this, on your screen, is ignite my passion for people to know Jesus. And then lastly, let's be praying together for this. God, grow our church's impact. God has us in an incredible time right now. And I really do believe, and I hope you don't feel like I'm trying to over-exaggerate or oversell. I really do believe he has us on the cusp of whatever the next 33 is gonna be. And I can only tell you, I cannot believe the impact God has used this place to have for 33 years. And I am selfishly, I cannot believe the impact he's used it to have in my life. I can't wait to see what he does in the next 33. But it's probably gonna mean some manna is gonna go away so that as he removes old expectations, he can provide new experiences. One of the ways that that's hitting us right now as a family in a personal way is with one of our really beloved staff members. So Chris, you wanna come up? We have, if you know, then you know, we've been in a season of a lot of transition and change the last number of years. As the founder stepped down a couple of years ago in the midst of COVID, as COVID impacted us with all of its changes and staff changing. And I mean, somebody even pointed out recently that all of our campuses have a different leader over the last 3 or 4 years than they had just 4 years ago. So we've just been in a season of a lot of God saying, hey, I'm laying groundwork for what's coming and for new seasons. And in moments of transition and change, there's always a mix of tears and there's a mix of smile. I remember standing on a stage similar to this when I left the church I came from to come here, and I didn't know when to cry and when to smile, and I felt both. I felt a sadness at the leaving, and I felt an absolute excitement to come be a part of this place. And Chris is going through something very similar right now, as he has spent 8 years with us, having a tremendous impact, most visibly on our stage and leading the music, but also in so many different areas that most of you would probably never know behind the scenes, whether in small groups or staff meetings or strategy and structure, and just loving and caring on the people around our campus. And Chris is now at his own season of change, where Chris is going to be joining another church in the area where he'll actually be bringing a whole different set of skills to them than he's even brought to us. Chris has been absolutely instrumental in building out everything that we experience here on a Sunday morning. But there's also, Chris is one of those guys that's a tremendously deep well. He has a ton more to offer, and a lot of that is going to be offered in really what's going to be an executive role, helping align mission and structure and strategy to accomplish the goals of a church he's moving to. And so on the one hand, I'm genuinely, and Chris and I have talked about this a lot, I'm genuinely thrilled because I think the kingdom is going to experience more from Chris that he's going to offer than we've even experienced in part of the depth that is your well. At the same time, I mean, all of us have talked about this. There's going to be a hole that just won't get filled. Even though the duties will and the responsibilities, there is no replacing Chris. You were the very first person when I came to Orion that sought me out when I didn't know how to make up or down of anything around here. Nobody knew me, and I'm super introvert, so I was still in that gun-shy era of like, I don't know, who do I talk to, and who's my friends around here, and what lunch table do I get to sit at? And you were the first person to come up. And I remember we were right in the middle of this section over here, and I remember that day we had a great conversation, and I went home, and that was the day I told Nicole, I think this place can be home. And you have been not just a blessing and a gift to our campus. Chris, and I've told you this, you have genuinely been a blessing to me personally. You have offered words of encouragement to me. You have offered words of hope to me. You have offered words of truth to me. You have blessed our campus. You have blessed us. And you have tremendously blessed my life and my family's life. My girls love you and adore you. My son was able to serve underneath you for a season of time. And you have just been a gift to the McGlassons as much as you have been to this whole campus. So we just want to celebrate you and send you with prayer, send you with hope, send you with eagerness, send you with sadness, but send you into what it is that God has for you next. So would you do this with me? I'm going to pray. Would you stand with me and just let me pray? And let's just bless Chris as he goes. Father, I just want to say thank you for Chris. Thank you for the life that you made in him. Thank you for the truth that he was no mistake. He was no chance. He was not random. For the truth that when his life began, it was because by design you chose to reach into his mother's womb and knit him together with purpose and plan and being and future. And part of that plan, part of that life that was written in a book before he was ever born, involved him being here. And it involved all the impact he's had on our life and on this campus, on this whole church. But it also involved all the days that are in front of this one. Written down already are things that he does not yet know, but are to come to pass. There are things written down that you have already crafted within him that you will craft through him. And so, God, I am thankful for this. While he will leave a gap here, I am thankful that the kingdom will be expanded in new ways because of where you're taking him. And so, God, I pray blessing over him. I pray favor over him. I pray that you take him, God, even with his sadness, with eagerness, and with anticipation for all that it is that you have in store for him. Grow him through his own season. I pray, God, that you would meet him in unique and in powerful ways through this new season. God, would you supply for us the gaps that will be left and the holes that will be left? And would you help these people that are getting him, help them realize just what a treasure that they're receiving in Chris Cook. So God, thank you for his life, for his impact, and in all sincerity, God, for the legacy he'll be leaving here. And for the legacy he'll create elsewhere now. In Jesus' name, amen. Would you celebrate Chris with me? All right. Let's let Matthias and the band lead us into this last song and make this really our cry and our belief as we go from this season into the seasons that God has ahead.
Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations.
when you do that rocking thing, sometimes I don't know if you're done or not. So I hope you're excited about what it is God has in store for us. As long as it doesn't mean changing my coffee order, I'm good. So I think there are tons of opportunities we discussed this morning for your continued involvement in groups and group life. We'd love to have you explore those. Amanda's out at the table. We'd love to have a conversation. Otherwise, so glad you were here with us today. We've got a prayer team that's going to be up front. We'd love to pray for you, serve you before you leave, if that would help you going into your week. Otherwise, have a great week. We'll see you at midweek this Wednesday and the next Sunday. Bye-bye.
For joining us. I just love that song, as we're talking about what we're putting our foundation on, because a lot of the times when we're in seasons of change, it can be difficult to walk through, and I just love that reminder that, God is our foundation, just as we focus on, God doing new things, that we can turn to Him and, break complacency. And so my hope and prayer is that each of you this week, that would be your focus. Just see what God has for you, and what new things that He could be doing in your life. But we'll be back next week. We'll have Brian Mowry speaking, and so we would love for you to join us in person or online, and we'll see you guys soon.